What we've seen, especially now that we're basically done with Q2 earnings season, company profits are very resilient compared to what people were expecting. Moving forward, I just think that's going to fuel the demand for these types of tactical exposures even more. Because what we know is that if you're not able to capture some of the biggest moves in the market for a course of a month or a few months, essentially be giving up all of the upside that you're able to capture for the whole year. In Europe, we have plans to launch 3x Robinhood, 3x Hims, 3x Eli coming up, even 3x Broadcom.
Earlier, you mentioned that there is this growing significance of retail investors in the entire ETF market.
Yes.
What are some popular stocks in Korea that Koreans favor to go leveraged?
Koreans, I think just like anyone else, love the big tech names. So they love Tesla, they love MicroStrategy, they love NVIDIA, and they love UNH lately.
Yeah.
So our sister company in the US recently launched individual 2x, or I should say 2x ETFs on individual stocks, including on names like UNH, including on names like Pallantir and Tesla and NVIDIA. And those have been especially popular as of late. And one other name is Circle. So that one, since IPOing just a few months ago, has been one of the most traded stocks globally. So what we've seen is that Korean investors have been interested in those same names where we've seen interest from other global investors. So like I said, Korean investors aren't very different from other global investors that are just looking to get tactical exposure to these high beta names.
If you guys are collecting any data on how these ETFs tend to move after they have skyrocketed, but they tend to be very volatile.
Yeah.
So if you have like any collected data on those kinds of like average movements of these products, can you like give us some advice?
So I think one of the most misunderstood concept when talking about leverage is this concept of compounding or theta decay. Because these products are rebalanced every single day, what you see is that in trending markets, if the market is going up, the cumulative gain on the ETF will be more than double what many people might expect. So that's a scenario where that sort of daily leverage works in your favor. But the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
The fact that they're daily rebalanced means that if the underlying stock were to go up 2%, then drop 2%, then go up 5% and drop 5%, at the end of a 10-day period, the underlying stock might be flat, but the 2x ETF might have lost money.
Right.
So this is a situation where it's not great to hold the leverage ETFs long term. And the opposite is also true. So if the underlying is going down steadily, even if the underlying is down 10%, you would be expecting to be down 20%, but what you'll see is that you might only be down 15%. So there's a lot of intricacies built into the product. That's why we at Leverage Shares are very adamant on not only pushing education.
Oh, that's great. How do you guys provide education? I'm interested to hear that.
So multiple ways. It can be through content creation. So we do a lot of very neat visuals. It's not just around what we're doing as a company, so our products. We're also educating around what's happening in the market, what's happening with the latest 13F releases, who's holding what's happening in terms of the overall market, who is doing what are the major investors doing. And as a company, we try to make things as digestible as possible, because ultimately a bad investor experience is in no one's interest, right?
Of course not.
So, we really push for active transparency. We really try to be very straightforward with exactly what we're offering. And we want people to know essentially what they're buying before they buy it. So.
이 레버리지 ETF 상품들은 오랫동안 홀딩을 하게 될 경우에 시장 성과는 그 기간 동안 설령 좋았다고 하더라도 낙폭이 커질 수 있다라는 위험성이 있기 때문에 단기적으로 트레이딩을 하는 것의 중요성을 얘기를 해주셨습니다. So you mentioned that you guys also offer some education like content, right?
Yes.
So is that offered through a certain platform that you guys have, or?
Usually it's mostly on our website. Yes, but it's also not very easy to bring traffic entirely to your website. So what we try to do is also use our social media platforms as sort of the distribution channel for all of the content that we produce. We know that the audience for our products isn't always sort of the person that's only interested in passive, plain vanilla, offerings. So we know it's millennials, we know it's Gen Z, they're very interested in our products. And the way to reach them isn't necessarily through traditional means like traditional media.
Right.
So we try to be active on social media platforms like X, even LinkedIn, Instagram. So nowadays, the role of influencers is, I would say, as important as almost any major financial media.
Yeah.
Because the way to reach the retail audience nowadays is very different than it was 20 years ago. And I think down the line, it's going to be very different than what we're seeing today. But ultimately, if you want to get that message across, you have to be where your audience is. And right now, that's social media.
이런 투자를 함에 있어서 혹은 레버리지 상품에 투자를 함에 있어서 위험성을 고객분들한테 알리기 위해서 또 다양한 노력들을 하고 계시고 인스타그램이나 X, 링크드인 같은 소셜미디어 플랫폼을 통해서 교육 자료들도 배포가 된다고 하니까요. 궁금하신 분들께서는 한번 찾아보셔도 좋겠네요. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we wrap up or?
I would just like to put our products in perspective of what's going on in the overall market, right?
Great.
So
Yeah.
I think we've seen this very hard bifurcation between what happened in the first half of the year, or I should say until April, versus what we're seeing since then.
Yeah.
So all of this rhetoric and all of the narratives around tariffs sort of led to not only the big indices getting beaten down, but also all of the big tech names. So we saw one of the worst drawdowns that we've seen since COVID. And everyone was very worried about the impact of tariffs and what that would mean for the overall market. And what we've seen, especially now that we're basically done with Q2 earnings season, is that company profits are very resilient compared to what people were expecting. 80% of companies actually beat what they were earnings expectations, basically. And what we're seeing is that sort of AI and tariffs, those are the most used terms during earnings season. And actually one of the key terms that people were worried about most before this earnings season was the word recession. And we saw a 90% decline in that word being used overall. So what that shows us is that momentum and the optimism is as high as ever before. And moving forward, I just think that's going to, fuel the demand for these types of tactical exposures even more. Because what we know is that if you're not able to capture some of the biggest moves in the market which usually happen within the course of a month or a few months, you might essentially be giving up all of the upside that you're able to capture for the whole year. So it's a very important time to be able to offer access to all of these tactical tools that investors have at their disposal nowadays.
Got it. Understood. So I guess it's very important to notice those sectors or specific stocks that has the fastest pace of profit margin expansion growth. So, okay, as the CFA of one of the biggest ETF issuers in the world, I am pretty sure people would also want to hear what is currently on your conviction list, whether it be a sector or a stock. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like I said, we're very keen on bringing products to market that investors are interested in.
Yeah.
So what we've seen lately is that there's been a lot of demand for exposure to more individual stocks, especially ones that we currently don't offer. So in Europe, we have some ideas, or we have plans to launch in the upcoming week 3x Robinhood, 3x HIMS. We have 3x Eli Lilly coming up. Even 3x Broadcom.
Exciting.
So these are going to be the first ever triple leverage products on these underlyings. And our sister company in the US also has some plans to launch double leverage products. So
What's the company's name?
So it's LeverageShares US.
Oh, I
Yes.
see. Yeah.
And in Europe, we can do higher leverage, basically. So in the US, 2x Figma is coming up. And apart from that, they have a wide range of capped accelerated products coming up as well. So yeah, all in all, I think we're looking to launch another 50 products across Europe and the US until year end. So it's going to be an interesting time.
It's too bad that they weren't launched like 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that's always the case.
Especially Broadcom.
That's
If it
always the
came
case.
in like a week ago, it would have been exciting.
Well, in the US, there is already 2x Broadcom, but in Europe, we're going to do even higher leverage. So I think it's going to be exciting times for tactical traders.
Wait, let me just check. So these 3 times products are being launched in US and Europe.
So in the US, you're not able to do 3x leverage. We can only do 3x in Europe.
Okay, so can Korean investors invest in those products as well?
Yes, they can buy the 3X products which trade in Europe, but from an investor's perspective, it doesn't really make a difference whether you're trading US listed products or European listed products.
조만간 런칭이 예정되어 있는 몇 개의 새로운 그 ETF 프로덕트들에 대해서 소개를 해주셨거든요. 지금 미국에서 발행되는 ETF 상품들의 경우에는 3배 레버리지까지 가지 못하는 경우들이 있는데 유럽에 소지가 되어 있는 회사이다 보니까 유나이티드헬스, 힘스앤허스, 일라이릴리에 대한 3배 레버리지 상품들이 조만간 출시될 예정이라고 합니다. 한국의 서학개미 분들께서도 많이 관심을 가지고 계신 종목인 만큼 이 일정에도 좀 관심을 가져주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 그리고 10월에는 얼마 전에 IPO를 치르고 주가가 굉장히 크게 급등했던 종목이죠. 이 디자인 소프트웨어를 제공하는 피그마 2배 레버리지 상품 역시도 런칭이 예정되어 있다고 하니까 성장성에 대해서 좀 베팅을 하고 싶다 하시는 분들께서는 이러한 상품에도 관심을 가져보시면 좋지 않을까 싶습니다. 네, 오늘 저희가 레버리지셰어즈의 CFA 옥타이 카브락 전무님을 모시고 이렇게 ETF 시장에 대한 다양한 인사이트를 들어봤습니다. 투자자 여러분께 많은 도움이 되길 바라겠습니다. Thank you very much, 옥타이.
Thank you for inviting me.